We are almost ready right now to prepare for the next roundtable, which is about AI in health tech industry. We've heard a lot over the last few years about artificial intelligence that's taking more and more of a place and space in our lives. We've heard a lot about the downsides and the upsides of artificial intelligence. So we're looking forward to this panel in which we have, is everybody on the call? In fact, we have Zhang, Dr. Chettipally, and Amit Saha. Is Zhang on our call already? So we are going to wait a few more minutes for Lu to join us.
Hi, this is Chettipally.
It's very nice to see you again. Dr. Chettipally has been speaking many times at many round events around here in Silicon Valley, so he's very well known. For the ones who are joining us just now, please again, you are welcome to join us on LinkedIn, also to watch the YouTube live and like the YouTube and share on social media. Thank you to Zhang for joining. So if everybody's ready. Yeah. So I would like to introduce our next panel, which is moderated by Amit Saha. Amit is a research engineer and advisor at Stanford University, and his current research is focused on chronic fatigue syndrome. The chronic fatigue has been such a huge issue for many people, but also it's an overwhelming issue for the medical system. We really don't have a cure for chronic fatigue. Amit is working on designing a microfluidic platform for diagnostics and exploring treatments for chronic fatigue syndrome, as well as extending the platform for examining other diseases that have a similar biochemical basis. Some of these are lupus, multiple sclerosis, and sickle cell disease, among others. So he will moderate today a panel on artificial intelligence and health tech. So welcome, everybody.
Great, thank you, Anna. Thank you. Welcome everyone to this AI in Health Tech Roundtable. Today we have two wonderful speakers with us. We have Ms. Zhang, who's the founder and managing partner of Fusion Fund. She's a Stanford alumni who's an entrepreneur and turned investor. Lu is a 2018 recipient of the Young Global Leader of World Economic Forum. And she's also been featured in the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Our other speaker, Dr. Chettipally, is, as Juana mentioned earlier, he is very well known in the Silicon Valley. He has presented many times with us. He's a physician, a researcher, an author, and an innovator. He is the president of InnoMD, which is a healthcare innovation company. As a physician scientist, he is interested in technology-enabled care. Dr. Chettipally has received the Pioneer Award of Innovation from the Kaiser Permanente Group, and also the Morris F. Collin Research Award from the Permanente Medical Group. So with this, I'll let our speakers take the floor, and this is a roundtable, so we'll keep it interactive. We'll start off with Ms. Zhang, and then eventually move to Dr. Chettipally, and then start taking questions.
Sure, thank you, Amit, and so glad to have this opportunity to share with everyone about our perspective about AI in healthcare. I think the past two quarters to start 2020 definitely make 2020 a very challenging year for everyone. And also from the VC perspective, you know, we've been investing in healthcare since when I started Fusion Fund. I was working on a medical device company when I was an entrepreneur. So definitely healthcare is one of my major focus since day one. But to be honest, many investors was focusing on healthcare investment since 2015. But for this year, I definitely heard a lot from my fellow investors saying that healthcare is so important, and we definitely see lots of challenges and opportunity for this big sector, which counted for more than 20% of the US GDP. So lots of opportunity coming up, and I will see more concentrated capital invest in healthcare. And within healthcare, lots of new opportunity, especially relate to, diagnostic technology was powered by the integration between the new technology like artificial intelligence, edge computer was a traditional sector. So on one side, for diagnostic technology in general, no matter it's for this crisis, for coronavirus, or for other typical like cancer, heart disease, or mental disease, the goal of the diagnostic is trying to be more personalized and targeted, which requires tons of analysis based on personalized data and how we better collect the data to monitor the situation, how we could really realize and discover the value of the biometrics data in order to provide a personalized diagnostic result and even personalized treatment plan. So I think now with this quick, rapid growth of integration of AI with the existing healthcare medical device, definitely lots of new opportunity, and gonna push us to approach the boundary of doing very early stage diagnostic. Another thing is the digitalization transformation in general. For this crisis, maybe one good thing about it is push and kind of force some of the traditional industry to go through the digitalization transformation, which including the traditional healthcare industry. So we do see, including our portfolio companies who are working on maybe enterprise SaaS platform solution powered by artificial intelligence to help traditional pharmaceutical company, traditional medical device company, even FDA as a regulator to go through the digitalization transformation to improve the efficiency and better utilize the data. And the last thing I want to highlight before the end of my statements is the correct attitude of how to really consider the relationship between AI and other new technology with healthcare sector in general. There's the tons of the media coverage since 2017 talking about AI replace doctor, AI replace nurse, which is totally wrong concept. Like for us being investing in healthcare for so long, and actually we've been one of the first VC investor proactively promote AI in healthcare since 2017. The main thing should be empower, how to better use AI technology to empower the existing player, no matter it's a physician or nurse or just healthcare provider, to help them better utilize their time, higher efficiency, improve their accuracy, and meanwhile improve the access. I feel in general we still need to resolve the main issue, maybe AAA issue, access, affordability, and also kind of accuracy. These are three things we want to resolve fundamentally for this system, and AI and edge compute definitely could help a lot. So if we could really have a right perspective about how to better, value AI and healthcare, how to better help them integrate with each other, how to better facilitate the conversation between AI expert and healthcare expert, meanwhile better help educate the FDA as regulator to help push this wave. Definitely there's a bright future for AI in healthcare and other new technology integrated with the healthcare sector in general. I will end there.
Great, thank you, Lou. We'll now move on to Dr. Chettipally and have his thoughts.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Amit, and the F50 innovation team. It's a pleasure to be here. And Lou, very great thoughts. I really appreciate what you talked about. And if we look at, generally the COVID pandemic, right? What it did is that it exposed, all our weak points in our healthcare system. People ask me, why isn't there a drug? We have thousands and thousands of drugs. Do we know which ones will work for COVID-19? Why isn't there information about how many people are being infected, or where are the clusters that are happening, or how is the disease being spread or not spread or prevented from spreading? How do we know, which is a safe practice? There are so many different practices for prevention, we're trying out, how do we know which one works best? What's the best way to get back to work? So all these questions, as Lou was pointing out to, points to our weaknesses where a lot of data is needed. True, AI is great. It works great, and it can give us a lot of insights. But before we go there, we need to have a lot of data coming in. And so one of the things that this pandemic exposed is that, we don't have a good public health data infrastructure. We don't have a way to track people. We don't have a way to see how our health systems are doing in real time, and see how our population health measures are doing in real time. So that's one of the big glaring facts that came out. The second thing that came out of this pandemic is that a lot of the people that are being affected are the ones that have, I would say, poor social determinants of health. People who are living in crowded places, people who are poor, people who are, racially discriminated. Those are the people that are being affected, the immigrants. And so it highlighted the fact that social determinants of health are very important in this pandemic. The third thing that we see is that people that are affected, not only the age factor, but also their comorbidities. How many of them have hypertension? How many of them have diabetes? How many of them have respiratory disorders like COPD or asthma? And how is it affecting them? We know that all these will add to the mortality and morbidity of COVID-19. So, but we don't have a way to track them. And so, if you can imagine, if there are methods and ways to use AI to be able to, number one, detect, how it is spreading and how to prevent it, number one. Number two, how do you test it and how do you know where the disease is spreading? Number three, how do you treat it? And, what are the best methods? What medications that we already have that people may be taking, do we have a way to measure if those medications are effective? Or are there some other medicines or vaccines or something that is preventing people from getting COVID-19? And so there are a lot of things that we could deduct from data and AI that we don't have that capacity because we don't have the infrastructure. And so one of the big things that we will see from this, episode of pandemic is that it lays bare all our weaknesses of our healthcare system, why we are not able to, use data in a significant way to solve the problem. We think that, okay, COVID-19 is a new disease, it's a new problem that we need to solve. But if you go back and look at, okay, what are the things that are needed to solve this? We need data interoperability. We need a way to control chronic disease, the diabetes, the hypertension, the COPD, and high cholesterol, the smoking. All those things affect COVID-19. And number three is, how do you take care of the social determinants of health, and how do you make people, how do you engage with patients so that their behaviors, their social behaviors can be modified so that they become healthier? Those are that's the big picture that I can take from this COVID-19. That's my spiel for today. And I'll, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Chettipally. So now we actually open the floor for questions. If anyone would like to ask something to our panelists, please put in the questions in the Q&A feature. While people are thinking of different questions to put in, I actually have a couple questions for both of you, whoever wants to take a dig at it. So firstly, Dr. Chettipally, you pointed out that there is a dearth of good data sets, right? A large amount of data is needed, which is true. Now, obviously, starting from the actual basic research state for any disease, COVID, diabetes, whatever it is, but starting from the fundamental understanding of the disease to then the medicine to different medicines rather, and then eventually getting it to the patient to either treat or cure them. There are several steps, right? So of course they are often staggered; they don't always happen in parallel, but especially in the times of urgency like COVID or maybe some other emergency, we of course then have to kind of prioritize some of those steps, right? So where do you think AI in health tech would be more useful, in that situation, or rather, or is it that it'll be equally efficient in everything, but we have to prioritize some steps? So either way, which of the steps should we more focus on? So if you guys could take that question.
Sure, I'll take that. So obviously prevention is better than cure. But in this case, we were a little behind on the prevention part of it. And so what happened was that there was an immediate surge of cases. So when you start thinking about cases, okay, what treatments are effective? We already have a lot of EHR data on patients. So health systems could look at that data and say, okay, of all our ICU patients, which ones are doing better, and what are the factors that are affecting their treatment? And AI is a great tool. Machine learning is a great tool to actually find those nuggets and say, hey, if we, gave drug A versus drug B, there's a benefit here. If we did, intubation versus, so much oxygenation versus the rate of oxygenation, or an intervention where, maybe positioning the patient, maybe this is better than the other. So there are ways of fine-tuning the treatment part and picking the medications that have the most effect on the patients on a positive side. So that is probably the easiest and I won't say it's easiest, but compared to all the other big problems with our data structure and interoperability, this would be an easier problem to solve within the healthcare system, within the hospitals, I feel.
Yeah, so to totally agree with the doctor, and also to add on to that, definitely if we could do better prevention and also better diagnostic, it would be good, but now it's a bit late. Now the focus is on vaccine and the treatment. But still, using AI would be a perfect tool to try to find out all the correlations. Even now we have the coronavirus, in different region, different country, but this virus is progressed itself, and there's mutation happening, there's new correlation happening. So using AI to collect the data, as we both mentioned, at the first time in the history, we're able to continuously monitoring the data, collect the data, and to do better correlation. And this thing could be done better than AI and more efficient, more accurately. Another thing, I kind of echo what Doctor mentioned about using the AI to better choose the potential drugs and also the potential better to do the drug development for treatment. Besides that, another thing AI has been playing an important role is to helping the R&D process, just simply using AI to improve efficiency, for example, for using natural language processing to help the researcher better extract the data from other research paper, and better to help them understand the analysis information using the AI model, or maybe just lots of AI platform now trying to help the researcher from pharmaceutical company or medical device company to help them become a data scientist without actually becoming data scientists, just leverage the AI platform they're using. So that's another very good application right now to help us, kind of fight against this coronavirus.
Yeah, those are very good points, Lou. So one of the projects that I'm working on is where, how do you, typically, when you want to do a clinical trial, you have the intervention arm and then you have the control arm. Can you use AI and machine learning to create a synthetic control arm where you're looking at the data and not necessarily having, because when you think about it, if you want to do a clinical trial and a control arm and an intervention arm, the cost of that is huge, right?
Yeah.
So what if we eliminate, or decrease the cost on the control side? You can use data to create a control arm that matches the intervention arm, and then be able to come up with conclusions, and like Lou said, help in the R&D process for pharma companies that are looking at different drugs and different interventions. So that's a good application for AI.
Yeah, totally. I am very happy to hear you talking about it, because the synthetic data has been a new trend we've been looking at since last year. And totally agree with you. Not only definitely data is a foundation, it's a nutrition for AI algorithm, but on the other side, to try to collect the data, collect the data from the existing world, it's hard to find the edge cases. But synthetic data is a very good path for the existing data points, the data resources we have, and using AI model to create it definitely is a very high efficient and low cost way to do it.
Great. Those are great thoughts. Actually, I have a follow-up question along these lines. Of course, we have seen some usage of AI to actually simulate, so to speak, data for different prediction. A good example are in cases of certain vaccines, they look at different structures and predict what might happen the next season. But the question I have is, these are now possible because we already have a fair amount of knowledge about whatever we are using AI for, right? But how reliable would AI actually be in case of a novel pandemic, right? Like the COVID-19 pandemic. And given that we are in the middle of one, are there any key takeaways for us that can help us understand how AI can help us prepare for another pandemic if and when that happens?
Yeah, I can answer that. So one of the key things that we need to understand as healthcare leaders is that the data that we are collecting, there's huge amounts of data, and there are some wonderful nuggets in there that we are not utilizing. Just imagine that there is a drug for some bad cancer, and we don't know about it. What a shame that would be, right? What a waste of human life, because we don't know that there is such a drug, and it cannot, we don't know how to use it, or we don't have knowledge of it. So also there are so many nuggets that are buried in our data, in our healthcare data. And we've done some interesting projects where, for example, when you think about chronic disease, you can think about hypertension or diabetes, right? So there are more than 65 or 70 hypertension drugs. Do we really know which drug will help which patient? We don't. Well, we may have a certain class, certain subsets, but can we actually personalize the treatment to a specific person? Yes, it can be done. For that we need AI, and for that we need data, and for that we need researchers who can ask the right questions, to be able to come up with the right answers. And so we need to get into the habit, or we need to get into the zone where we know that, okay, data is very useful. So let's build the infrastructure. Let's build the systems to be able to collect that data, to be able to study things when they happen, in an emergency situation. So if we have all the setup already made, all the infrastructure all ready to go, then it would be much easier to study anything that comes our way, right? So first we need to build those pipelines. First, we need to build those connections, build those networks for data to be transmitted or to be shared between healthcare providers and researchers.
Yeah.
And that, I think, would be the first step to be able to tackle the next pandemic or next disease that comes along.
Yeah, I would totally agree, especially talking about the access to the data. I think now the issue is on one side, definitely, how to better collect the data. But on the other side, with all this existing data we've been having, there's the isolation of the data. Like each hospital owns their own data, and the clinical healthcare service provider, regulator, patient themselves, pharmaceutical company, that everyone owns their own data. But if we do not connect the data together, we could not see the whole picture, which also correlates back to the coronavirus situation. If we were able to connect all the data at the beginning and find out the correlation, we'll probably be able to identify the situation much earlier and have it better under control. So this time, definitely the whole reaction was too late. So if we could have a better solution, how to really build up the bridge for each different parties to share the data instead of having this isolation of data, and also having a certain type of rule, like a common rule, common standard, everyone would follow to provide access, meanwhile still protect their ownership, that would be great. Another thing is not only just between the bigger player within the system, is another big problem and also big opportunity is whether there's a type of technology or application could be available to help the hospital, our traditional data owner, to directly share their data through a third-party independent entity with the startup companies. For example, when the like new situation happened, we do not expect the hospital gonna for sure have all the AI solution to utilize the data. But if they have the platform, our third-party platform, to directly gather data, make it in a way, formatting in the right way that ready for AI to use. Otherwise, sometimes, for AI founder or startup, when they talk with a service provider, they got huge amount of data, but some are high quality, some are not very high quality. The label are all messed up, and there's not a correct format for them to quickly integrate a solution with the data. So if there's certain type of application could resolve that issue, would be great. And on the other side, that will also provide another revenue resources for the data owner or data provider to better use the data instead of they have to, figure out the solution or technology application all themselves. We start to see some company trying to, build up this third-party platform, talking about with a different hospital to have all their data source to the platform. They work on it and package it ready for either a large tech company or smaller startup company to use. But I think that's only the technology part. We could utilize AI. We could use edge compute distributed network to better define the ownership and also protect the data ownership. Meanwhile, make it available for everyone to use. But on the other side, we definitely need more complicated regulation on that, since that's not only data, that's also digital asset, and how we could have a better and comprehensive protection over the data asset and have clear definition of who owns it, storage rights, how to do monetization. That'd be very critical. That's not the thing could only done by the technology or healthcare sector. I think we need a more broader discussion to loop in all the policymaker, the major player, and also technology.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from the audience. Steve here is asking, in the personalized medicine domain, obviously looking at generic data or applying artificial intelligence to generic data may not be entirely fruitful, right? So in case of personalized medicine, where you need more specific information at a personal level, how do you think the AI can be useful?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people think that we don't have good data, so we should not do anything. I disagree with that statement because we will never have perfect data.
Yeah.
If you think about personalized medicine, I don't think that you need to think about an individual as the person, right? So let me give you an example. We looked at, by the way, I do this every day. So we looked at data on diabetics and wanted to figure out, okay, how do you find the best drug that would help a specific diabetic? And as we looked at millions of records, we kind of found that diabetics, when you look at the variables, diabetics were falling into different clusters. So, there were 4 big clusters, which had a different set of variables, which means that there are, 4 big types of diabetics. Although they're all type 2 diabetics, we were able to further classify them into 4 different classes. Of course, there are many more than 4, but 4 big ones. And the other thing we were able to figure out is that, specific drugs were working on each of these different classes. And so you cannot say that, oh, this is garbage, I'm not going to deal with it. But as you get closer, you are, decreasing the size of your target, and you're becoming more and more precise. So it doesn't always happen to that one particular point that you need to get to, but at least your target is much more smaller and much more specific to what you want to do. So, so people thinking that, AI will solve all the problems and, everybody will have a perfect medicine, perfect health, that's not going to happen. It happens in stages. So you have to know. So right now, what science tells us is that, if you have these risk factors, if you look at American Heart Association or American Diabetes Association, right? They have done studies, for many, many years, and we know that the population in Massachusetts is very different from the population in California, right? So at least you can separate those two and see, what are the differences between these two populations and what specific treatments will work better in our population. And then as you start looking at, more detail and as you dig deeper into the data, then you'll get these insights that you would normally, you don't, like everybody gets the same medicine. That is much, much, worse than what we could do with the data we already have. Knowing that it's not perfect, but still we can, glean some insights into that data.
Yeah, so just quick to add on to that, and when we talk about personalized medicine is definitely for treatment. Another thing AI do is help us better connect treatment with diagnostic result. Diagnostic could be personalized too, and based on that result, could see which type of medication will be more effective. For example, for small cell cancer, like lung cancer, it's not just the genetic reason causing the cancer. There's other like a lifestyle, other environmental issue, and the AI could help us better do this correlation, and which contribute back to like, if you want to do more targeted medication for this individual, you could utilize all the data. And meanwhile, for example, another big issue right now for the whole world is aging population. And related to that, now the increasing of amount of the mental disease is a big challenge. And mental disease is even more, I won't call it more complicated. I would say we have more unknown related to mental disease, like why for this individual specific person, what triggered the mental disease for this person, whether it's genetic reason or whether because other reason. For example, we invest a company doing the early stage diagnostic for dementia. And they found out, some people because of family history, genetic reason, but other people may relate to their lifestyle. For example, smoking would contribute to that. If we have all this data and correlated to which type of treatment plan you wanted, it will be more personalized. So without AI, you won't be able to kind of line up all this correlation, and the people would have to assume that, okay, same disease for different people gonna be same treatment. But if we want to do personalized medication, we also want to find out what actually triggered it for a specific person. So that's another part AI could play an important role. But back to originally what Doctor mentioned, I totally agree. it's gonna happen step by step. For healthcare innovation, especially AI in healthcare, I really worried about when there's too much capital coming in and people assume AI could solve all the problem. It won't. It will be something empower the existing player. It will be a process of integration. The replacement is gonna happen that whoever use AI as an effective tool will potentially replace the people refuse to embrace the new technology. But it will take a long time for us to achieve the final goal, no matter it's a specific personalized medication or specific, super early stage diagnostic or even treatment plan in the future.
Great, thank you. So we are nearing the end of our session, and I have one last question for both of you, because you both are investors and entrepreneurs. So so far we have had some splendid points based on the science, the research, along those lines. They're great. But now, if we change gears a bit, are there any specific pointers that you'd like to share with us from being an investor or being an entrepreneur, as to how how the opportunities in AI are in these kind of times, and or in general, if there's anything that you guys want to share, that would be great.
Okay, sure. I could get started, and I would say the first thing is I've been got asked recently a lot is founder asked me whether or not it's a good time or bad time to start a business, especially healthcare become a hot topic. But on the other side, the macroeconomic is going down. We're entering into a recession. My general feedback is always there are no good or bad time. But definitely now you can see the trend is coming that digitalization of everything and healthcare become a major issue, need technology for integration. So whenever you're ready, you should just start it. But the important part is to set the correct expectation, which means, we're in the downturn, which means the capital going to be more concentrated. And it will be harder for mediocre founder to raise money, I will put it that way. But the top 10% of the founder will be able to get more concentrated capital. And meanwhile, in terms of competition, there will be much less player in the market. So for very few survivor, and they will be able to take over the whole market much faster. So that should be the expectation for the founder, understand what they're entering into and then be prepared for that. But in general, there are no good or bad timing. The only timing you need to consider is whether the technology integration with your solution with the healthcare sector, whether it's ready or not. Something might be too early, something might be already late. That's the only thing. Besides that, another thing is, especially for AI in healthcare, I was in a panel early this year in JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. I remember on that panel, I was the only investor, ex-founder, try to go through FDA for AI in healthcare solution. All other investors trying to ex-founder, try to avoid FDA regulation, go to direct consumer process, which is much faster. I'm strongly against it, because if we really want to make this two group people work together, AI application integrate into the traditional healthcare sector, FDA will be a very important bridge. And on the other side, I understand the frustration when founder working with FDA, especially non-healthcare founder, they may think regulation take long time, capital intensive. It's getting better, definitely, especially for the past couple of years. We have many companies, they got FDA approval, 510K within half a year. I have a couple of them, AI in healthcare company, they got the first FDA approval for like deep learning for medical imaging improvement. They got 2 FDA approval within 1 year. We need to help FDA better understand how to accelerate in healthcare with AI and edge compute. And when you help them, they will help you back by accelerating process as well. And meanwhile, even only with FDA approval, it will make it much easier for the AI in healthcare solution to adopt by the traditional physician and the nurse. It's not just only about efficiency improvement, it's also about the justification for the existing player, how they trust your solution. So don't afraid of the regulation, try to work with them, treat FDA as your friend, and believe that they're getting better and the whole system is getting better to integrate with new technology.
Well said. Very important points about the FDA. So I do mentor and counsel entrepreneurs, especially when they're in early stages. So the first thing I tell them is that make sure you are geared for the long run. You cannot do in healthcare, it cannot be quick. So that's number one. Number one is make sure you have, a 5-year or 10-year plan, not just, 2 years, 3 years, and you're going to get out. So that's number one, be patient and be prepared. The second thing I tell them is that make sure you have a healthcare person on your team. Ideally, if you're building a solution for, let's say diabetes, you better have an endocrinologist or somebody on your team. So make sure you're a physician or a nurse or a pharmacist, somebody from healthcare, should be on your team. Most of the companies I see, they come in with the technology first. That doesn't work. The third thing is make sure you make contact with your potential customers early on. You need to learn exactly what the problem is. You don't come up with a solution and then start looking for a problem. First you go to your potential customer and actually find out about the problem. Study the problem, understand the science behind it, and especially when you're talking about data science and actually using data to be able to give you information about efficiency or cost or any of those things. Make sure that the business model matches the business model of your customer. For example, actually this morning I was talking with an entrepreneur, and he wants to create a tech solution to prevent strokes. Okay, so who are you going to sell it to? Well, I'm going to sell it to the hospitals. Well, if hospitals don't get stroke patients, they'll go out of business. They'll lose money. So they will not use your stroke solution. And so you have to figure out the business model first before you actually, think about it. It may be a great thing to think about it, in a science way, with the scientific background that you may have. But, if it doesn't fit the business or the business model of the hospital, they're not going to use it. And so it becomes a difficult situation. And so first find your customer and find the problem that the customer is having, and then build the solution rather than the other way around. Even if you have, the greatest solution for a problem, unless you align the business side of it with the solution, it won't be successful. Those are some of my key things that I suggest to entrepreneurs.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Chettipally and Lou. So we have come to the end of our AI and Health Tech Roundtable. I'd like to thank both of you for taking out the time today and for some wonderful points. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Chettipally, and thank you, Amit.
Thank you, Lou, and thank you, Amit. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye.
So back to you, Anna.